there were no jobs really. There was no work, and so nobody had employment. Nobody was, everybody had straight jobs. My last job, I was this apartment. They moved me out of this apartment immediately next day when I told them about the rat thing, because it really wasn't an apartment. He said, "Yeah, your buddy shouldn't have been living there. I don't know why. Yeah, but you're taking my rent every month." They moved me into a new place. It was a building. It was completely just redone. It had been redone. It was not great redone, but it was redone. And I was living in there, and I was having a hard time making rent, and the landlord noticed that. And one day he said, "You're having a hard time making rent." I said, "Yeah, I'm having a hard time making rent." He said, "Can you do carpentry work?" I go, "Yeah, I can do carpentry work." Complete lie, complete lie. He said, "Yeah, you get like $10 an hour, and then you can go over under the table and work with these guys." So I go over to work with these guys. They're rehabbing an apartment. So in 2 seconds, they realize I'm not a carpenter, but I'm an okay guy. I go run for beer. I go run for cigarettes. I get sandwiches for them. I'm funny. I'm hanging out. So at the end of the day, they told the guy, "Look, he's not a carpenter, but he's a cool guy. You can hang." So he says, "Look, can you clean out apartments?" I go, "Yeah, I can clean out apartments. I mean, absolutely. I mean, absolutely. Manual work has kept my family on this planet for many, many generations, I can do that." So I show up the next morning, gives me the address. Next morning I show up, there's like 4 young Italian guys standing out front, and they're passing a pint bottle around. And I join, I'm Rich. He goes, you're the other guy? Okay, look, we're going to go in, we're going to clean this place out. We're going to clean it out. Here, 8 in the morning, have a shot. Okay, have a shot. Okay. We go in, we're cleaning squatters out of buildings. That's what cleaning out, because what was New York City had almost gone bankrupt in '76. They started selling buildings for like $1 a piece if you guaranteed to redo it in a year and make it livable. So these guys, mob families is the proper way to say it. Mob families were buying buildings. And so these guys and I went in, and we were throwing people out. Squatters, we were throwing stuff out of windows. We were pulling people out of buildings. We went into shooting galleries. It was rough sometimes, and these guys were rough, and we were rough, and we were half drunk, and we were doing it every day. And I'd do this all day, and at night I'd go hang out the Improv and just hang out, because I couldn't get on stage. I was new to town, and I was having a hard time getting on stage, but every young comic knows you've got to do the hang. I was like a vulture. I was there every night. The show started at 8. I was there at 8 o'clock, just in case somebody didn't show up. Every night. I was burning both ends of the candle, man, but I was hungry for it, hungry. And so finally, one night, it was a Friday night, and it was a packed house at the Improv, and I'm sitting in a bar, and I don't see any other comics in the bar. And Gilbert Gottfried was on stage. Now, Gilbert was a killer act, man. I mean, he had a bit. He had so many different bits. He'd take a bar stool and hold it up and do this thing called quadradick. And this is 1970s, man, and nobody was doing dick jokes like this. And the whole thing was he'd do a parody of the Jaws movie, and he'd do different characters about this monster quadradick. And he'd do James Mason as the sheriff, and he'd do these different characters, and he was a brilliant bit. And then he'd close with this bit where he'd put a jacket on, this really bad sport jacket, and he'd do this Tony from Brooklyn, and it was a parody of stand-up comedy. He'd go, "Hey, why'd the moron throw the clock out the window?" "'Cause he's a fucking moron. Are you listening to me?" Right? Every joke he'd break down. So one night, he's on stage killing. I don't see any comics there. I knew the lineup. Richie Gold was the next comic. He wasn't showing up. I see Chris Albrecht and Howie Klein. They're on the phone calling up all the other clubs. They're calling up to get a comic. They see me out there. They know I'm there. They know I'm the young comic waiting, but they're trying to get somebody they know can do the job, because it's a paid spot. There were 3 comics, then a singer, then Gilbert's spot, and then the last spot, 5, the number 5 spot was the last paying spot on the show. So nobody's showing up. So finally, Howie Klein comes up to me and says, "Can you do the job? Can you follow Gilbert?" I said, "Yeah, I can follow Gilbert." Went in, followed Gilbert. I came off. He said, "You're a paid regular." I go, he might as well have told me I was certified stamped. I said, "You're a paid regular." So I started getting, weekend gigs. But in the beginning, all my gigs, all of them were following Gilbert. There was a reason why Richie Gold didn't show that night. Because following Gilbert was tough, man, because he deconstructed. But this is what it helped me doing, because I started doing something different. When Gilbert would work, okay, you couldn't really do comedy after him. And I couldn't do crowd work like where you from, what you do for a living, because the other comics, the first 3 had done that. So I started going, "Hey, you're a couple." And I started talking to couples and started doing stuff about relationships and started building relationship material, which became my thing. I got lessons from other comics, and here's where this lesson ties in.